Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story is a subscriber submitted story from my friend and dear subscriber Mir. It was actually Mir's friend who wanted to share her story with us guys, and Mir's been working extremely hard to try and get that tied up and typed up and sent over to me, given the current rush with the holiday festivities as well. Thank you very, very much, Mir, for your hard work and support and getting this story over to us. Very, very interesting story, guys. I think you're going to really enjoy this one. Of course, please do let us know down below. Of course, please do like and share. Without further ado, let's get straight into tonight's story. I'd like to entitle When the Snow Began to Fall. Let's get straight into that. Hey again, DMT. I'm sorry this took a while. Juggling our different time zones and the added craze of the holidays made this a little bit of a hassle on my friend's end. I asked her to write out her story as she sees fit and then just send it to me. So I will be pasting it here for you. Written in her own words, she wanted to remain anonymous and left names out of her story as well. Here goes. When I was a little girl, I used to live near the outskirts of East Wenatchee, Washington, on a small farmland stretch near the tree line which went on for several miles. My mum and dad were both really strong-willed people. They were always on top of their responsibilities no matter the circumstances. A conviction I wish I had. Whenever our daily chores were done, they let me go out and play and even have friends over. All of my friends were uncomfortable around my parents as they could be overly strict at times, but with good intentions, of course. It's not really like we were hurting anything though. We would just journey slightly past the tree line to really enjoy the pure and unbridled beauty of nature. It was always so peaceful to sit there at the edge and just listen to the birds humming through the air. Of course, we'd always come up with some sort of fun game to play while we were out, though never straying too far. I wasn't keen on being yelled at for something I was told every time I go out specifically not to do. When the snow began to fall though, they seemed to be more on edge about letting me go out. Even at that age I understood the dangers of the winter and how bad it could really get out there, but I never really got why, even with my limited radius of venturing, they would hardly let me out at all. To me, it was such a beautiful sight to see the snow fall, even if at least a gracious rate. With 3 feet and more building up beneath your feet, I used to whine and argue, pleading with them to let me out for just a little, but almost always came to the same answer, except for one occasion. A friend of mine's birthday was coming up, but she pretty much had no one to spend it with. To this day, I still cannot understand how some parents would favour a business trip over spending time with their child on a birthday of all days, and intend to leave her with just a maid to tend to her. Yeah, as if that's good parenting. Anyway, I decided to beg my parents to let her and a few of our friends have a birthday party here, which they eventually and quite reluctantly agreed to. I was honestly surprised with how much they put into making it nice for her though. They got a nice cake, balloons, decorations, and even bought a few games for us to play inside. But as the laughter died down and the 4 of us in our little group huddled together, all seemingly with a singular idea, we figured in numbers we'd have had a better chance of persuading my parents into allowing us to go outside for just a little before it got too dark. A friend of mine had brought one of those cool foam shooting guns, and we decided to play a variant of tag with it. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was honestly one of the most fun moments of my early childhood. Soon after my turn was up and a certain friend of mine who had targeted me, I picked up the pace and ran as fast as I could from her, nearing the tree line more. The others seemed to follow my lead as the rain of foam bullets came from behind us. Once we were behind the tree line, we scattered almost on cue, and I found myself running past a few large oaks and then hiding myself behind one. I was laughing so hard that, for a moment, but I knew I had to calm myself quick and listen to hear if she was still tailing me, but I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear anything at all. It was completely quiet. There was no birds, not even excited footsteps of my friends. At that point I got a bit nervous, but thought to myself maybe they had all taken it to hiding as well. So I leaned slowly and quietly to peek from behind the tree to see if I could spot my friend with the gun. Poking my head out slightly, I couldn't see anyone. But I only had a short while to check before I had the same uneasy feeling come back to me like a punch in the gut, and a sudden bone-chilling breeze from behind. In that moment, I felt petrified. It was almost as if I knew something was behind me, but by some unknown feat I managed to slowly turn to see what it was that was making me feel so frightened, only to see more nothingness. It was starting to get darker at this point, and I could only see as far into the woods as the foliage progressed further into blocking out what little rays left the sun had to offer. I was terrified. It wasn't at all windy before, at least not to that brief degree. It wasn't natural. It just come from something. But I couldn't move, let alone come to a conclusion as to what could have caused it. But before I could consider my next actions, I was hit with a violent and abrupt stench of rot, and an odd and warm sensation on the back of my head, like hot air. As soon as my eyes widened from the realization of imminent danger, I felt whatever was behind me grasp my tiny head in one hand. And as soon as I let out the scream out of my throat, I felt the extreme straits of speed I have never felt previously or after, as I was flung several feet back, hitting my head hard and rolling to a stop. I was still conscious throughout, being flung like a ragdoll, and as soon as my roll came to a halt, I wasted no time springing to my feet and running like a bat out of hell away from the tree line. Just as I was about to reach the edge of the tree line, I tripped and fell face first into the hard ground, which stunned me momentarily. Trying my hardest to force myself from a daze, the best I could physically muster was to turn to my back, and as my vision cleared and my ears ceased ringing, I could see my assailant clearly. A tall, horned beast that had been over at least 7 feet, including its horns. It was an off-white colour, like ashen. The horns were black, just like the clawed fingers on its hands, which I could see it wiggling like it was playing a piano. It was standing upright with hooved feet, but the part that made me literally pee myself in that moment was its face. It seemed to be nothing more than a skull, but had a very, very thin layer of skin, it seemed, but it had no eyes, but sockets with an unnatural darkness within them. When I say it didn't have eyes, I say this because a red light, of which I have never seen before, seemed to emanate from within the sockets. But the most odd detail I could now more clearly tell, after being sucked in by the abyss of its gaze, was that the skull was seemingly more human, but appeared to elongate only slightly at the jaw, extending to house dagger-like teeth, which were hardly hid behind paper-thin lips. It also seemed to have a canine-like nose, which would flail each time it snorted in air. As it was getting even closer to me, eventually looming over me with such a terrifying disposition, cocking its head side to side as it just watched me, its saliva dripping on my clothes, and its foul breath and smell bringing me to tears. Or were they tears of me about to be torn to shreds by some freakish demon-looking monster? I don't know, but my mind was on the verge of breaking right then and there when I heard an odd snapping sound, and a little orange foam bullet fly above me, hitting the creature in the face, causing it to snort surprisedly and divert its attention from me upwards. This gave me all the time that I needed to rush to my feet, as I felt myself being tugged forward by my friends, and the sound of my name being shouted and other various words being yelled, such as "Run! It's coming!" began to fade back into reality. Apparently they had waited outside of the tree line for me. Perhaps they had seen it while I ran ahead deeper into the woods and took off. I'm still ever grateful that they didn't abandon me. Before we reached the house, I saw my dad was already running towards us with his rifle alongside one of my friends. He shouted at us to get down, and my ears started to ring again, but much more violently than before, as he began shooting above us the second we dropped down. Somehow, though my ears ringing and not being able to hear much of anything else, I was able to pick up a very distinct squeal, like a child and an elk mixed together. This sound put me in a trance-like state at first, as I whipped my head around and caught a glimpse of its ashen hair darting off into the woods faster than anything I've ever seen before. My dad later came to me, eyes full of tears, and bandaged me up inside the house for the few bruises and cuts I had. And I felt I did more damage the more he kept bear hugging me. But even though his stern attitude, he cared and was genuinely worried for me and my friends, and we never again questioned him as to why he wouldn't let us out in the winter. I do hope you and your fellow DMT family enjoy this experience my friend has shared with me. Happy holidays, my friend, Mir. Wow, thank you, Mir, so much, and thank you to your wonderful friend for trusting me with that experience. Must have been horrendous. Please do let us know what you think down below in the comments, guys. Of course, please do like and share. Hope you're having a fantastic Christmas. And remember, guys, above all, be safe, not sorry.